All right, so good morning, everybody. Welcome to the InfoChip Support Weekly webinar. This week, we are going to be covering creating and managing operation forms, so inspections and certifications in the InfoChip system. Just a quick rundown of who's on the call today. We have Christian Lowe. He's our technical support manager, as well as the onboarding specialist. He's been with InfoChip for over 8 years now. My name is Matt Clarkson. I am the technical support analyst and training expert. I've been here for just coming up on 4 years in a couple days here. So I am the guy that you will reach whenever you send in an email to support@infochip.com or give a call to our support line. Just a quick rundown of the topics we're going to be covering today. So we're going to start off with creating a new operation form. We're going to go over the different task types that you can create on an operation, how to manage your existing forms, so deleting tasks, adding drop-downs to certain tasks, reordering tasks within a form. We'll go over that as well. And then setting category default forms to pare down the number of forms that you have for specific assets in your system. So first thing we're going to do once we've logged into the system is we are going to go under admin maintenance and go to operation forms. This is going to give us the list of operation forms that we currently have access to in the system. If you just start with InfoChip, you will get kind of your base few forms that we have available. So if you're lifting and rigging, there's about 80 or so basic forms that we have, and hoses have about 3 or 4. From here, you're able to delete forms that aren't applicable to your account, or you can go in and click the pencil icon on any forms and make changes to any tasks, the title on the report, the description of the report itself, which we'll go over in a little bit. Just as a note, these operations are only available to admin users in the InfoChip system. So if you have a client user account or a reports user account, you will not be able to access this menu. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new form. So the first thing we're going to do is on the right-hand side of the screen, we're going to click the new form button. And that's going to give us this little pop-up here. So the first thing it's going to do is ask for an operation form type. So we have 3 different types of forms that can be created in the system. We have an inspection, a certification, and preventative maintenance form. Preventative maintenance we'll go over in a separate seminar. This is more to do with the work orders and advanced scheduling module that can be added for specific accounts. 99% of the time, you're just going to be using the inspection or certification forms. So for today, we're just going to create an inspection form. First field is your operation form description. So this is what the description of the form would be when your user accesses it through any of the InfoChip platforms. So this is what they're going to see. So you could type in chain sling inspection, for example. Now I know that I've already got one in here, so called chain sling inspection. So I'm going to call this chain sling monthly inspection. Your report title, so this is the title that's going to show up on the actual PDF cert or the certification that's auto-generated on the website when they click that print icon. So you just want to make sure that this is basically what you want that title to be. If you don't put anything in there, it's going to just automatically default to the operation form description. But for this, we're just going to say this is a record of inspection. What we want on there. And then the last field we have is start with the same field tasks as a different operation form. So what we can actually do is, let's say that we're creating a chain sling inspection, a monthly inspection that's a little less intensive than our annual inspection that we might be doing for a customer once a year. We could actually choose our chain sling inspection form that we already have and start with the tasks that form has on it already. So if I choose that and I hit insert, what we're going to see is that it starts off with all of the tasks that I have from that other form. So if I take a look here, I've got all of these tasks, just visual things to check, as well as my system tasks, my order number, PO number, inspection result, inspection instruction, generate alert, comment, and timestamp. So any form that you create is always going to have those fields. It's always going to have order number, PO number, and then all the tasks in the 900s. Those will all be on every form you have, just because the system needs those fields to function. It'll start throwing errors if those system tasks aren't actually there. But this is if we were going to add it based off of an old form. If you don't do that, obviously the only tasks that you're going to have are just those kind of 7 tasks that we show as system tasks. It won't have any of these pass or fail tasks that we added from our chain sling inspection. It just gives us a good base to start off of. So what we can do now is we're going to start by removing some of these tasks that we're not going to check kind of every month. So let's get rid of binding. And to delete tasks, you're just going to click that red X to the side. So we're just going to remove some of those just as a starting point. So now what we can do is we can click this add field or task in the top right-hand corner. And then what it's going to give us is 2 radio buttons up at the top. So we can add an existing field. So this is a field that we have already created in any of our other operation forms. So this list gets really big really fast. You can just type into it to find something. So you could, let's say, tag. Right, so you can type into it and it'll just kind of pull it down that list if you're looking for something in particular. If you know that it's a completely new task that you're adding in there, what you can do is you can click the Add New Field radio button, and then it's going to give you the option of setting that information. So 99% of the time, I like to say start with this Add New Field, and if it tells you that one already exists, go back to the Add Existing Field, and then type into that drop-down what your existing field description was. So let's go to Add New Field. And for this, we're going to make a documentation check. So let's say we're adding that in there as, I want to make sure that this chain sling has an up-to-date proof test on it to make sure that it's certified for the next year. Just if we're going to check this every month, we might as well make sure that that's available. So then we have our task type. So the task type is basically what kind of task is this going to show up as when the person goes to fill this in on a mobile device, on the website, or on the desktop. Kind of what are the different tasks that we have available. So for this, it makes a lot of sense to have it as a checkbox, right? So we could just say check if it's there, right? That'll show up on the cert as true. If it's unchecked, it'll show up as false. And we're just going to do a quick rundown of these kind of field types. I might group some of them together if they all pertain to the same thing. So your cert ref num is a system task that gets added in through a proof test. A proof test will auto-generate a cert ref num for you. Checkbox, self-explanatory. It's just a checkbox, so it's a yes or a no. Combo box. So combo box is an interesting task type. It is a text field, text 50 field, as well as you can add drop-down values to it. So you have the option of choosing from the drop-downs, or if one of those drop-downs doesn't fit what needs to be entered in for that task, you can also manually type into it. Condition drop-down. So this is a condition of a piece of equipment. This is used mainly with hoses. Date, time are pretty self-explanatory. Drop down. So a drop down is same thing. You can add drop down values to it. However, the drop down you cannot type into. If your field inspectors are going to need to enter in information manually, if something is not showing up in a list, that needs to be a combo box text or a combo box task type, not a drop down. If it's something that's always going to be static, like let's say that it's size, and it's size, small, medium, large, extra large, or double extra large. Obviously, there's not going to be anything between those, so you would set that as a drop down. Elongation. So all of these are test bench tasks that if you are testing for elongation of a hose or a piece of equipment, those will get automatically filled if you are checking for displacement. And then we get into our pass and repair, our pass and fail task types. So we have this big long one here, which is P, PR, PM, fail, F, FC, NA, DNI. So pass, pass repair, pass monitor, fail, fail critical, not applicable, and did not inspect. So this definitely encompasses the most wide range of things that you could check on a specific task. So you'll see that if you look in the background, our form has like tag, for example. Tag is one of these tasks. So we could set it to pass monitor and be like, hey, the tag is looking pretty worn. The next time that we do this inspection, it probably will need to be replaced. This also gives you a little bit more ability to show on certain reports that you can run. So on the summarized report, for example, it'll actually give you a page of critical failures if you use that fail critical task on your inspections. Pass fail, pretty self-explanatory. It'll be pass or fail. We add NA on the next task and then did not inspect on the one after that. So if you don't need any of the repair, monitor, fail critical, you could use this pass fail, NA and DNI option. One thing to keep in mind about all of these tasks is these are the only tasks that will be able to trigger the pass all function on any of the platforms. So it's tasks that have pass as a default value in that drop down. So in a drop down, if you just added something that said pass, that won't necessarily trigger off of a pass all. You need to choose one of these 4 tasks that we have here. Peak load and proof test type. So these are both system tasks as well that get auto-filled from the test bench program. There are default tasks that need to be put onto a test bench form when you're creating it so that they get auto-filled from the module itself. So they pull the values such as peak load, hold time, the proof test type, and doesn't throw you any errors. So for anybody who's creating a new test bench form, if there's things you need to add to the default IC test bench proof test, make sure that when you're creating that form, you start with the fields from the IC test bench proof test and then just add from there. That way you won't run into any errors when you're trying to perform proof tests. Nothing comes up that task is missing. Section header. So if you have a really long form, what the section header does is it'll actually break out your inspection into separate sections. So if you're doing a crane inspection, for example, you can break things out into trolley, hoist, cab, treads, so on and so forth. Just kind of breaks it up a little bit nicer. When you run reports, it'll section off certain sections of that inspection. Signature task. So if you add this to your forms, you can actually get the inspector to sign on a mobile device. This will give them just like a little window to draw their signature in there. Obviously, if you do an inspection and you have your signature auto uploaded from InfoChip support, that will just show up when they run the certification. It'll show up underneath the username box. Target load and target load hold time. So these are both, again, like we were talking about before, things that pertain to the proof test. We have text 250. So this is a long text box. You can enter in longer comments, notes section, for example. Text 50. So these would just be your short answers up to 50 characters. We have yes, no. So pretty self-explanatory there. And then yes, no, and not applicable. And all of these can be found in our knowledge base as well. We have a big list of all of the task types and what their use is. Next field we have here is sort order. So sort order is where is this task going to show up in the list of tasks that we have. So if you see in the gray background here, under sort order, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 4, 5, 8, 9, 11, 12, so on and so forth, all the way down. So 1 and 2 cannot be changed. They will always be 1 and 2 at the very top of the inspection, as well as the 900s will always be at the end of the inspection. But anything between that, you can change the sort order to put certain tasks wherever you want in the list. Best rule of thumb if you're creating a brand new form is use sort order in intervals of 10. So if you start with 10, next task is going to be 20, task after that would be 30. The reason that we do this is that, let's say, for example, that one of your inspection criteria changes, and you have to start inspecting something that you need to add to this operation form. Well, if that needs to go in between 2 tasks, and those tasks are at a sort order of 3 and 4, there's no way to put it between those two. You could set it to the same sort order, but it'll only be sorted by alphabetical order at that point. So what we do is we set our sort order in intervals of 10, so that way when something comes in and you have to add it to an operation form, you could add that in at 15, for example. That way, between 10 and 20, that task is going to go right in the middle of those two. So for this, just because we've got 14 here, we're going to start at 20. We're going to make this a checkbox. And then if we need to add another field after that, we're going to check that box right there, hit insert, just going to clear our field, automatically increase this by 10, and then we get to move on to our next, adding our next field in there. So we could add hooks, for example. Task type, pass repair, add another field, insert. Oh, this is that field validation that I was bringing up before. So we do already have a task in the system for this. The field description already exists. Please select it from the existing drop-down list. So now I can go over here, select my field, hooks, 5 hooks, pass repair. Just going to select that, sort order of 30. I don't need to add another task in after this one. I'm just going to hit insert, and we're done. So if everything everything gets saved automatically when you're editing a form. So once you've done this, the only thing that you're going to need to do is your users are just going to need to sync their devices, their mobile devices or desktops, and it'll pull down the new form for them. Like I was saying before, with editing a form, one thing you can do is you can change the form name or the title in the report. So for existing operations that we already have in here, just go under Admin Maintenance Operation Forms again. So we can change this air hoist inspection, for example. So if we look over to the side, we have Edit Report Title as the title in the report. So that means that we haven't actually set one before. So we can go in here and say, air hoist inspection report. For example, if we just needed to make an edit to this. Like I said before, if there's certain tasks in here that need to be deleted, just click the red X down the left-hand side. The one other thing you can do as well, so let's say that you needed to add a task in between 2 of these tasks here, but as we can see, these are all increments of 1. We can actually change the sort order of the entire operation by clicking this button in the far right. It gives us the opportunity to change these numbers here. But the easiest thing to do for this, if you're adding something in there, is just click this Renumber Sort Orders button. And it's automatically going to space everything out by 5. So that way, if we needed to add something between 10 and 15, we could add it at 12. And then once we're done, just hit Save. And all of those are going to be reordered throughout our entire operation. The last thing we're going to do for managing forms is just look under this Form Fields Tasks section just under Admin Maintenance here. So this would be if I'm adding anything to a drop-down or a combo box. I'm going to actually find it in this list here. So for example, I have this task here called Auxiliary 1 Core, which is a combo box. So what I can do is I can click on the hand icon. That's going to pull down my drop-down values for Auxiliary Core 1. If I want to set a default drop-down value, I'd set that at sort order 0. But now in here, I can add which drop-down values I want for this particular task. Now, I don't know what the Auxiliary 1 core would be, but I do know cores of golf balls. So I'm going to say graphite. I'm going to put this at a sort order of 10. Insert new item. I'm going to say composite. Put it at 20. Insert new item. When I'm done adding everything in there, I can just hit finished. And it's going to add everything in there for me. If I need to change the name of a task, for example, so if I needed to change Auxiliary 1 Core to Golf Ball Core, for example, I can just click that pencil icon, change it. Obviously, I'm not going to see it anymore because this is in alphabetical order, but that does give me the opportunity to show that if you're looking for a task, obviously, if you have 2,000 rows, you're not going to find it in the 92 pages. Easiest thing to do is just click on the binoculars, type in golf, hit search, and there's our golf ball core task that we can now edit or delete. If you delete a task, it's going to remove it from any operation that it's currently assigned to. For that, you're going to want to do a sync again on the desktop after you've made any of these changes, obviously, just to pull down the most updated form. Now, the last thing that we're going to cover about operations today is setting default forms. Now, I find that this is one of the most important things, especially for field inspectors, just to be able to pare down the number of operations that you have. As you can see from before, under our operation forms, we had 92 forms in there. If you need somebody to go through and do an inspection of a bunch of different rigging and they have to scroll through 92 forms, every time they pull up a piece of equipment, it's just going to slow them down and they're going to get frustrated. So the best thing to do is set the default forms for every specific category that you have in the system. That way, it allows them to just look at the forms that are applicable to that piece of equipment. So if I go under Admin Maintenance, I can click on this Modify Default Forms option. Now, what that gives me is this drop down up at the top is where we're going to start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and default that new chain sling monthly inspection that we created. So what I want to do is I'm going to go under Lifting Standard, under Slings, Chain Slings, and we're going to start by defaulting this on our single leg chain sling category. So what we would do at this point is we can see that single leg chain sling doesn't have a periodic certification, but it does have a different visual inspection already defaulted on it. So if you look at chain sling requires periodic inspection is checked, our chain sling visual inspection is marked off, and our inspection interval settings are set to 1 year. So if I wanted to change this, for example, I could choose it from the dropdown, change it to our chain sling monthly inspection. Then if I want to change this interval, what I can do is we can change it to every month and leave that as is. If I want to set a certification as well, I can check this box, choose it from my list of certifications that I have in the system. So we're going to just put it as Cert of Compliance. And that Cert of Compliance needs to be completed every year as well. The last section down here is your other assigned forms. So these are going to be forms that aren't necessarily in your default periodic inspection or periodic certification, but these are forms that also could be filled out on this piece of equipment. So for example, we have that monthly inspection in there. We wanted to add our just regular chain sling visual inspection, which is our annual. We could add that in there and assign this form to the list. Just gets added to the list down below. So you'll see that IC test bench proof test is another thing that is defaulted to this category as well, so that it can be performed on this asset. So what does this all mean? So now that I have these 4 forms set up here, what I can do is I can hit save up at the top. All of my changes have saved. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and find an asset in that single leg chain sling category. Right, so I'm going to grab this test asset here. And then if I look under my operation forms, these are going to be all the forms that are defaulted for this category of asset. Same thing if I look under certain inspection status, these are just going to have the defaults that I have set for this particular piece of equipment. So what I can do is if I go to, let's see if I can find a category that doesn't have my default set. Something weird. There we go. So if I take a look at this, for example, I look at my operation forms, the only thing that I have in here is recording and unable to inspect. If I go under certain inspection status and try and look at my list, it's going to give me all of those 92 forms. So you can imagine how difficult this gets on desktop or on a mobile device, especially on a mobile device if you're having to flick through all of those forms just to find the one that you need to work on. So that's why I really, really stress how important it is to go in there and set your default forms. For lifting and rigging customers, this is automatically going to be set for you with just our regular defaults in the system. However, this is going to be you will need to go and set those default forms if you're creating new operation forms in your account. You'll need to go and make sure that those are assigned to the correct category. Alrighty, so I'm going to unmute the rest of the call now, and we can go over any questions that you might have, anything you need to need clarification on. Alrighty, so did anybody have any questions about adding in operations, defaulting forms, anything like that?
Yeah, I did, but that was way back at the beginning, and I've forgotten what it was. Give me a second, I'll think about it.
No problem.
Oh, I know what it was. So but I think you already answered my question. When I was entering, I don't know, some sort of sling, I don't remember exactly what it was, game wire or whatever. And I chose the default inspection form that comes up with that category. I noticed that it only had like two different inspection criteria or whatever, and it didn't have the ability to put the customer name and the customer name and customer PO number in there, or order number and customer PO number.
Right.
So then I thought, well, wait a minute, I don't understand this because it says chain sling inspection. So then I went to change default forms, and I found another one in there that says chain inspection, the exact same title, but it had an entirely different list of criteria. So I chose that one as the default, and my problem was solved.
Right.
Is it possible to have two different inspections with the exact same name, or two different forms with the exact same name?
I believe so. There might be a bug in there where you can create a form with exactly the same name. It might be from the copy as well. Like when we copy it over, it might show up as the same name there. But what I would do in that case, if you pulled it up and had the wrong, it didn't have the right tasks in there, I would go back to your operation form screen and just delete the form that doesn't have all of that good stuff in there.
Right, and that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And set the new default.
Correct. Yep. Did anyone else have any other questions? Serge, I saw that you joined kind of right at the end there. Sorry. Sorry, Serge. I can barely hear you. You're cutting out really bad there.
I want to know, I would like that you explain us how to set the inspection format.
Serge, I can't really make out what you're saying there. If you click on in the Join Me, there's a little chat bubble up at the top there. If you click on that and actually type in your question there, I'll be able to answer that for you. I just can't hear you over the actual call.
Okay. Hello. Hello.
Hey, Serge, did you hear what I said there?
We have some trouble as usually, with our internet, so no problem. I will ask it separately at the InfoShip support.
Sure, yeah, that works as well. Yeah, just shoot me an email at support@infochip.com and I can get that answered for you.
Thank you.
No problem. And Don, did you have anything else? Any other questions you needed to answer?
I do, but it's not related to forms. If that's okay, I don't know.
Sure. I'm just gonna end the recording here.